you should look at yourself as a brand, not necessarily just as an actor, as an entertainer, because you do so many different things. You know, you sing, dance, act, you can do all this, and I think once you are comfortable being in people's family room as Mario, as yourself, or once they accept you, then you can be on TV for the next 50 years.
Stand with me and let's welcome Mario Lopez. Well, you know, Mario, your role in Saved by the Bell, it really gave you a platform. And for many, it could have felt like the height of a successful career. But you spent 30 years since then really building something that goes way beyond your initial success. So my question is, like, when did you realize that Slater wasn't your ceiling?
Well, first of all, when you said 30 years since then, that made me feel really old.
Hey, I gave you the compliment, though. I was
30 years,
like,
man,
looking
that's
pretty
crazy.
good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, it's interesting because I wasn't one of those kids that just wanted to get in this business and, oh, Mom, I want to be on TV, this and that. I am a child of immigrants. My parents came from Mexico in first generation here. I was born in Chula Vista, which is the border town really to Tijuana. So it's a world of difference, even though it's a couple hours away from LA. Not exactly the most upscale neighborhood too, so there was a lot of potential for trouble and what have you. And my parents, who were still together, just celebrated 55 years.
Dude, that's amazing.
Which is awesome. You know, I owe everything to them, and anything I am and never will be is because of my mom and everything. Well, my dad too, but my mom was really, you know. Shout out to both of them. But I'm giving you the backstory because their whole motto was to keep me busy enough and to stay out of trouble because, again, I was a really like hyper kid. I don't think I was ever diagnosed, but I probably had ADHD and all that stuff. I had broke my nose and all this. I was just getting into stuff all the time. But I was always genuinely inquisitive, and I read really well. And I loved speaking with adults, even as a little kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't shy. And someone had approached my mom about getting into, you ever thought about getting into like print work or commercials and what have you? My mom was like, what's that? And then they explained it to her, and then she's like, well, he reads well and doesn't shut up, so why not? So then I just sort of fell into it, and then when I fell into it, I fell in love with it, because I was already sort of kind of naturally already wanting to be an entertainer. Like, I like hosting people. I like hosting, whether it's like barbecue night, game night at my house, or a nationally syndicated radio show, or a TV show. So that just came very natural. And then because of all the different activities my mom put me in, I was the only dancing, wrestling, karate, theater kid that I knew. So it worked its way there. So I never looked at, this is a long answer to your question, but I never looked at when I got on a TV show like that was the end. It was always just kind of something fun to do. As a matter of fact, my whole attitude was, well, I'll do this and make a little money. And by the way, it was a little money. It wasn't like Friends type money because it was a Saturday morning show when I was doing Saved by the Bell. I started before that, by the way. I was 10 years old, but we'll get to that later. So I just thought I could help my parents out when it comes to like college and stuff. I could pay for it.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that was my attitude. But then I kept working after high school, and I said, well, if it slows down, I'll go back. And knock on wood, it never really slowed down. So according to my dad, I've never had a real job. And then it just kind of kept going that way.
You never like had a lemonade stand. You like literally were acting at 10. You never had the real job. No lemonade stand, nothing.
No, the lemonade stand. No. I mean, I helped my dad because my dad he worked for the city, and my uncles were in construction. So yeah, in the summer, I guess working for them.
Okay.
That was about it. But at the same time, I was still on TV, which was like the weirdest thing because they treated me just like anybody else.
Yeah,
I mean, well, I am just like anybody else. But my parents and my rest of my family and my neighborhood, they didn't treat me any different.
Yeah.
And I went to a regular public school. I went to Chula Vista High School, 3,500 kids. I got to go to the prom and play sports and do homecoming and all that fun stuff. So I kind of had best of both worlds right there, which I'm very grateful for because a lot of the kids, they really didn't. And then when I go back to school, I never really talked about it and stuff. I kind of tried to downplay it.
Yeah.
I didn't really talk about it because I just wanted to kind of, be seen as like anyone else. And other people had jobs too. I just had like a different kind of job.
Yeah. So here's one of the things that, I mean, we got to talk about the show, Saved by the Bell, just for a second. But I would like to talk about it from a different point of view, which is the seasoned version of yourself, right?
Okay.
No, I was going to talk about the age of the seasoned version
I
of
like the
yourself.
seasoned.
Let's zoom out, right, and tell us sort of the arc of like what it was like to do that show. Sort of like, here's how it started, here's how it ended, here's where I landed.
Well, I was 15 when I got the part on that show, and we were actual teenagers playing teenagers. Now, of course, with Disney and Nickelodeon, you have a lot of shows like that. But back then, there wasn't any.
Yeah.
And then before that, any representation of like teens and youth were old. Like remember Grease? They were like 35 playing teenagers and stuff, or anything. They were like a lot older. So this is the first time you really saw kids playing kids, and it was a very diverse cast, and it was very innocent. It was Saturday morning. And it was supposed to be for little kids, but for some reason, like older people started watching it and stuff. So that's why it was so vanilla in that sense. Yeah. But there was a sense of nostalgia there that I think it still kind of resonated with people all these years later. We did that in the summertime because everyone was a minor. So again, I got to go to like my regular school. So I didn't even think of that. I just thought it was the show that I was doing kind of at the moment. Had fun doing it. We did like 5 seasons, and then after that, so it was actually during my real high school life, and then after that, I thought that would be it. Never did I think I'd sit here talking about it 30-something years later.
Yeah.
I think it's over 30, by the way, but yeah.
Well, we didn't want to say that. Yeah. We didn't want to call all that out.
That's all right. You can't lie anymore because people just Google you now. Back in the day, you could lie. You can't lie anymore.
That's pretty awesome. Well, one of the things that if you kind of were to think about just how much people loved that show and how big it got and how much of it sort of like the momentum really picked up and people really wanted to continue to watch it. And it was like, it came to a natural end. But like, talk to us after that. What was there sort of a low point where you're like, and that was huge. And you could have stopped there and been like, Dad, I'm going to go get a real job now. But you did something else, right? Talk to us about what was the thing that sort of came after that you said, I'm going to decide to do something with this.
Well, transition is always tough, especially when you're a child actor and people see you in a certain light, and then you're on a show that becomes popular, and then you sort of get pigeonholed in that role, and then people don't kind of want to accept you or give you an opportunity even sometimes, specifically in the entertainment industry. And that was sort of the case, right? Because you're young, but you're not, at this point, if you're in your early 20s, still not young enough to kind of play these other kid-type roles, because now there was a lot of the other shows started coming out like that, but you're not sort of old enough to be like a mature man and those kind of roles. So just the age was difficult, and then being a former child actor, and then just people just not wanting to sort of give you a shot because you get typecast. Yeah. Right? So, but I never had like an attitude like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because I've always had that sort of hustler mentality. And again, I don't know, I think it was my upbringing a lot being, because when I wasn't acting, I was wrestling, I was doing something else. I was always doing something else. And there are no rules in the entertainment industry. And at the time, during Saved by the Bell, there was a lady named Linda Mancuso who I guess just really liked me or liked my personality. And she offered me this job as a host on a show called Name Your Adventure, where to this day it's probably still one of the coolest jobs. People would write in, and teens would write in the different adventures that they'd want to do. And I got to do everything from like interview the president, go rock climbing, skydiving, swim with sharks, cool stuff like that. And then I just got to fill in, like make sure they were having a good time, have fun, and then I would chime in with little educational tidbits, because it was actually one of the shows through the FCC too, and on NBC. And I did that for like 3-4 years, and I realized, wow, I can just be myself as like a host and get paid. This is awesome. And I love people and meeting different people and doing different things, and that sort of opened my eyes to the hosting world. And then I thought, okay, I don't have to just necessarily act. I can also sort of I can lean into this hosting thing. And I had the opportunity, what really sort of changed the trajectory of like my career. I did a show called The Other Half, which was with Dick Clark, Danny Bonaducci, this plastic surgeon, Dr. Jan Adams, who was controversial later on because he was the surgeon who performed on a surgery on Kanye West's mom when she passed. When that happened, and then there was me, and at that point I became and we had the unfortunate timing of premiering on 9/11. Well, 9/11 was on a Tuesday because I'll never forget it, and we premiered on the Monday, but that obviously disrupted and changed and
Yeah,
threw a
changed
monkey
everything.
wrench. Yeah, it changed everything, and we only had a couple seasons of that show, and that was test. But we were doing well. It was just sort of the dynamic. But through that, it was a great experience. I became very friendly with Dick Clark, and he sort of took me under my wing and became a bit of a mentor. And he says, you really need to kind of focus, and you may want to lean into this hosting thing, because you should look at yourself as a brand, not necessarily just as an actor, as an entertainer, because you do so many different things. You sing, dance, act, you can do all this. And I think once you are comfortable being in people's family room as Mario, as yourself, or once they accept you, then you can be on TV for the next 50 years.
It's
You don't have to
amazing.
worry about
Yeah,
so
that
I
was
like,
his
wow.
playbook.
So at that point, I said to myself, you know what? I want to be the Latino Dick Clark. And I said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. But no rules, and still kind of do everything else. So that sort of changed my whole mindset and made me sort of lean into that and focus on that. And it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you're like a super positive guy. That's like a big part of your reputation. Super positive guy. That there's a lot of optimism. There's opportunities everywhere, kind of thing. Where does something like that come from?
Well, thank you. I mean, my buddies always tease me. I think I am the eternal optimist. I try to be positive all the time, and maybe that's my faith too, because I was raised in a Catholic household, and faith is important to me. And I know there's certain things you don't necessarily talk about, like politics or religion, and I never do talk about politics. And I know a lot of entertainers and celebrities do, but it's obviously polarizing and divisive, especially now. And so I never say anything. I'm never one to implore. I would never tell you what to think, what to do, who to vote for. You do what you think is best for you and your family. God bless you. And I just completely remove myself, out of it. But I will sort of probably talk about my faith, even though that's it, and again, I always respect all manners of faith and religion, but I think, I am proud to be Catholic, and I'm raising my kids too. They have a faith-based education, and I think as I've gotten older, I've tried to build even more spiritual muscle, and I think that sort of permeates everything in my life, and maybe that's where the positivity comes from.
Yeah, I mean, like the reality is I found that you really do happen to live a better life when you've got a value system that you're like, I'm living in my values. I tend to be, if I'm living outside of my values, I tend to not be in the best place. So I think it's a powerful thing to have, the value system that you have. And, I think at the end of the day, everybody's got their own way of attaching to that, right? Or not. But I think that's really powerful. One of the things that I liked is you talked about, the 4 Fs.
Yeah.
Right. So give everybody, unpack the 4 Fs, because it's like you have a framework for your life, which I love.
Well, I think the most difficult thing is, especially when you're young too, is kind of figuring out who you are, right? What you're about, what you represent. I kind of figured that out pretty young. Maybe my faith had a lot to do with it too, but I always say my Mount Rushmore of 4 Fs are faith, family, fitness, and food. Very passionate about all those things, and that's sort of, not to sound corny, but like my brand, if you will. If it doesn't fall into one of those buckets, then it's not going to be authentic to who I am, or it's not going to be something maybe that I want to support, get behind. But yeah, if it falls into those things, I can speak to it from an organic place.
Well, having sort of the Hollywood, career and moving into, being the Latino Dick Clark, there's this thing, like you've built a lot of brands. There had to be sort of a moment where you felt like the typecasting, you said, I want to dig into that a little bit, or maybe feeling a ceiling or having to push through. And I don't want to call it a crisis because, but like there's these moments of opposition that we have to push through. And I don't know if you have one of those that you could kind of tell us about that would help us understand what it was like for Mario Lopez to push through a hard point.
Well, I think it's when you mentioned, after Saved by the Bell, what were you going to do? Because in acting, it was tough, specifically with the acting stuff. Just because it wasn't for lack of effort or ambition of wanting to try different things. It's just sometimes the opportunity, you're not in charge of your own sort of destiny in that sense, because you have to have other people at least give you the opportunity, unless you're a producer coming up with your own content now. I wish I was a kid right now, because now with YouTube and all these different platforms and social media, you can create your own content. You can make your own. It's such a great time.
Yeah.
Even though there is a lot of negatives that come with it, there is such a great time right now for a young person to have a career and they can control their own destiny. Where when I was a kid, it was
Scripted.
It was in other people's hands.
Yeah.
So, so rewinding and to answer your question, you just have to pivot. And even though I was like, okay, the acting thing's not as those opportunities aren't as there right now, so I'm going to focus more on sort of this hosting thing. Because of the hosting thing, then I got into radio, which I love and is one of my favorite platforms because it's intimate like this. I love music too. And at the same time, I said, okay, maybe not TV, maybe do the stage. So I went and I did some theater. Ended up doing Broadway. Met my wife on Broadway. So it was in New York. So and
You're gonna have to tell us about that.
So
but
I
keep
figured,
going.
yeah. So there's you just kind of got to pivot, and I went into different sort of avenues of the entertainment space.
Well, you did all of that, and then you started this whole sort of brand building thing. So help us understand how you went from the sort of heavily curated type of your career, then moving into the sort of hosting thing, but then you started launching out and building all these brands.
Okay, so I'll tell you. So before Saved by the Bell, by the way, I was on a show called Kids Incorporated. You're all probably too young. But you know that? Dang.
Man, I know about Kids Incorporated.
Dang, that's crazy. So Kids Incorporated was like the Mickey Mouse Club.
I was almost going to sing the jingle.
Get out of here. You're too young. You don't know Kids Incorporated. Oh, he does know. Wow. Oh, you're probably old like me too then. You just look good.
I'm old.
Everybody really sang and danced. I really played the drums, by the way. All that's happened. Yeah, with Fergie, who was on. She was my first kiss. We were 10 years old.
Yo.
And then, maybe I'm giving away too much right there. No, she talks about it. And then, Martika or Sean Patterson. What was I going with this? See my ADD. So Kids Incorporated, and then I did a bunch of different stuff like the Golden Girls and different movies and all this stuff before I got into Saved by the Bell. Wait, what was your original question?
Dude, I was talking about how you're building brands.
Oh,
you took us down all these other avenues.
No, I'm going to tell you why. Yeah, okay. So I go there, and then once after the acting thing in Saved by the Bell, and I started getting into hosting, then people started knowing me as Mario, as opposed to just, hey, Slater, this and that. We became, because I was in your TV, I was on your TV every day.
Yeah.
As, hey, I'm Mario Lopez, welcome to Access Hollywood, or this and that. Or whatever show I was hosting, a game show from PetStar or Candy Crush, all these different stuff. I was in your home every day as Mario for years, thank God. And after that, Mario Lopez became just sort of kind of synonymous with like this family programming that I was doing. And then I had gotten approached about sort of adding my name to things, to your question, to the branding. I'm like, oh, cool. So the hosting thing is great because now I'm known as Mario Lopez, as opposed to a character, and I can just kind of attach that to things I believe in or that I'm about or I can get behind. So cut to now, I've got my name, and I've everything from dog toys to cooking utensils, to like everything, baby clothes. You know what the number one seller is? It's so funny because I just had this. I have these men wipes, okay? And in the branding, it says, it's so funny because it says Mario Wipes for Men. But the four is mad tiny. So you look at it and it looks like Mario Wipes Men. It's the funniest thing. But I just upped like another 3 years. It's just the whole thing. So the men's wipes are the biggest one, which is crazy.
You're like, who would have thought? Who would have thought? You had a big breakthrough, but then man wipes.
Yeah, but the men wipes, and the baby clothes. It's so funny. The baby clothes and the men wipes are the big. I was like, all right. Yeah. So because of the hosting and now the branding of just Mario, it's allowed me to do that. Where I don't know if necessarily if it would have worked if I would have just focused on as just being an actor.
Yeah. Well, you're still acting.
Yes, right? I am. As a matter of fact, I'm shooting a movie right now in New York, a holiday film, Tony Danza's my dad.
Dude.
And I'm his son, and my actual real son Dominic is playing the grandson.
No way.
Yeah, it's fun, and we're tap dancing and singing, and it's got a lot of heart. We're having a lot of fun. It's really cute. The title, we're going back and forth on it. It might be Meet Me at Starlight or Rewinding Christmas. We don't know, but hopefully y'all check it out. It will be out this Christmas.
That's awesome. Well, there was a particular facet of AC Slater that was very well known, right?
Okay.
And it was probably let's just call it your fitness. So let's call it as fitness. I was trying to be subtle. You know what I mean? Trying to be subtle. And I remember you said, I forgot what, I think it might have been Access Hollywood or something, but you said, man, I got to break a sweat every day.
So let me tell you about why it was. So when I auditioned for that role, the little breakdown, like the description of the characters, it said a Vinnie Barbarino Travolta type character, right? From Welcome Back, Kotter. That's old school. So he was just supposed to be kind of like a wisecracking, kind of like a street kid, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, so I auditioned, and I got the part right there. The producer, executive producer, Peter Ringold, said to all of us, write down all your interests and hobbies, because we might want to incorporate that into the character. So, because I'm like, I wrote down dancing, wrestling, playing the drums, all this stuff, and they incorporated that into the character. So he wasn't supposed to be like a jock. They just incorporated that because that was me.
That was you.
That was me. I really did grow up wrestling and doing all that. And fitness has always been a important part of my life, even more so now as I've gotten older. So I've always been an ambassador about that. I grew up going to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and I'm proud to say that I'm the fitness ambassador for the Boys and Girls Clubs, and we've raised a lot of money for great programs there. And I always tell people, your health should be your number one priority, because if you don't have that, what good is anything else, really? You'll quickly realize it when it's not there for you or you're struggling with it. So I always try to encourage that. And for me, breaking a sweat every day just makes me feel awake, makes me feel alive, makes me feel young. I sort of just to get a little time out before I tackle the rest of the day. And once you kind of got that out of the way, the rest is easy.
Well, one of the things that's incredible about you is you're definitely a creature of evolution, transformation, right, and discipline. So, like, I think everybody would want to know, like, what's a day in the life of Mario Lopez? Like, what's your schedule?
Well, discipline. I always tell my kids too. Discipline's the number one most important, I think, trait a person can have if you're disciplined and consistent. That'll bode well in whatever line of work you're in. So the day is pretty crazy. So in the morning, I'm gonna get to your answer, but
I knew you were gonna have to unpack this one for sure.
I recently competed in the International IBJJF Jiu-Jitsu Championships out in LA.
You said you competed.
Yes,
okay. I
competed in that. I won too, by the way. I
Dang.
ended up winning gold, but I'm proud to say because I'm just a hobbyist, but I always like to set goals. I always also tell my kids you're never too old to kind of learn something and to continue to set goals. So they said, well, why don't you enter the competition, Dad? Because they do it too. And I said, you know what? All right, I will. And so I've been getting up early. I get up about 5:30, 6 a.m. I go and I train in our jiu-jitsu class. We call it the Breakfast Club because it's so early. And so I'll train jiu-jitsu. Usually I'll do boxing and stuff. I like these individual sort of physical, violent kind of activities just because it makes me kind of de-stress.
Yeah, get the stress out.
And jiu-jitsu in particular too, it's like physical chess. You're problem solving, you're learning. It's a great community, it's humbling. So I'll do that in the morning. From there, early in the morning, from there, I'll go and I'll do my radio show first. That's called On with Mario. That's nationally syndicated on iHeart. And from there, then I'll go do Access Hollywood, the nighttime show for NBC, shoot that, take a break for lunch, prepare, and then we have the daily show, Access Daily. And this is all consolidated here at Universal Studios. Then I'll do Access Daily. And then after that, sometimes I'll have my fight podcast, the 3 Knockdown Rule, or I'll just have a Zoom or a meeting or something. And then I'm home, or I'll go straight to the kids' practice, one of the kids' practice. So it's a lot, but I'll usually get it done around 4:30, and then I'll go to one of the practices, and unless I have a dinner meeting or something, then I'm home having dinner with everyone and try to catch at least. I try to catch at least like an hour of TV just to kind of be up to date to what I'm talking about. And there's a lot of good shows out right now, or documentaries. So my wife loves a true crime documentary. So,
Right before bed.
Right before
Yeah.
bed.
Oh,
It's the
God.
craziest thing. And she sleeps like crazy.